Hello, everyone, and welcome to a brand new motorsport podcast series. I'm Ed Foster, and this time we're turning our attention to Porsche. The series is called Porsche's Winning Formula. Ever since Ferdinand Porsche designed the Volkswagen Beetle in 1939, 8 years after launching his eponymous company in 1931, Porsche has been at the forefront of vehicle design. While the Pretty 356 was the first car to carry the Porsche name in the late 1950s, many of you will automatically think of the 911 that arrived over 10 years later. Arguably the most successful sports car of all time. The model is still being built nearly 60 years later. In those years, Porsche has won the Le Mans 24 Hours more than any other manufacturer. It's been victorious in Formula One, both as a constructor and an engine supplier, and it's won countless GT championships with its beloved 911. Porsches have even done rallycross and rallying. In this special podcast series, we are going to speak to the racers that are at the forefront of the German manufacturer's racing development and key names from the road car side to get a better idea of how this great company has had so much success for so long. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another podcast in the series of Porsche's Winning Formula in partnership with British luxury yacht manufacturer Princess Yachts. I'm Ed Foster, and I'm joined by none other than Earl Bamber. Earl, a very warm welcome to the Motorsport Podcast. And you're joining us from a sort of slightly overcast Spa, ready for the weekend.
Yeah, no, joining you from Spa, obviously getting ready for the 24-hour race, which is our biggest race of the year in the European GT Championship. It's obviously everyone knows about the floods and what's been going on, so it's still a bit wet and rainy, but hopefully we're going to have a dry race this weekend.
Now, in the introduction, I was going to refer to everything you've won, but it's such a long list, I'm actually going to have to read it. So bear with me. Two-time Le Mans winner, two-time Bathurst class winner, a World Endurance champion, a WeatherTech Sports Car champion, a Porsche Super Cup champion, a two-time Carrera Cup Asia champion, and a Formula BMW Asia champion. It's an amazing roll call. I probably missed a few things. When you were back in New Zealand, first going karting, you can't have ever dreamt of having a CV like that.
No, you couldn't. And me and Brendan were laughing about it actually the first time that we won Le Mans together in 2017, because the first time in 15 we would have been about 6 or 7 years old, just starting our go-karting career. And if you look back, that would have been 96, 97, the last time that Porsche won Le Mans. So if you can imagine two young kids at a go-kart track looking at that and saying we would be the next ones to win Le Mans for Porsche in the history, you would never imagine that in a million years. So, that sort of is always a crazy fact. And yeah, we all dream when we start go-karting that we'd make a career of it, but not many people do. So it's just an honor to be able to drive race cars to start with, let alone go and win all the big races.
Yeah, because you learned to drive, I think, sat on your father's knee on the farm over in New Zealand, and then started karting every weekend. When did your karting turn from this is great fun to I'm actually taking this very seriously?
Actually, when I started go-karting, I was terrible. I was really, really slow. And I remember my dad coming to me one day and saying, "Do you really like doing this?" And I said, "Yeah, I really love doing this." And he goes, "Well, do you mind driving a bit faster? Because I'm sick of driving around the country finishing last and I'm not enjoying it." And then one day when I was driving at Taranaki Go-Kart Club, I went in the go-kart club and sort of said, there was a big trophy. And I said, "You know what, I'm going to win that today." And he sort of scoffed at it and said, "Well, you never won anything in your life. You're still last. How do you think you're going to do that?" And then I just went out and won. And then after that, it was probably when we were in junior go-karting, sort of 12 to 14, that we sort of saw that there was a pathway to do this properly.
Yeah. If anybody can hear any noise in the background, that's because Earl is literally in the middle of setup in the Spa paddock. So he's just bringing you a bit of atmosphere as we go along. Your parents weren't into motorsport, were they? So where did the desire to go karting come from?
Well, actually, my dad really liked go-karting. So he raced himself a little bit. And he wasn't great at it, to be honest. And he did go around the world go-karting as a mechanic So he mechanic did it, and he generally loved driving on the roads, gravel roads. So he grew up gravel driving, and that's where I learned to drive. In the beginning was driving on gravel, and then it sort of progressed from there, I would say. But Dad's a big motorsport fan. He watches it day and night. Every formula that you can think of, whether it be right now IndyCar, Formula E, Formula One, GTs, V8 Supercars, everything he watches, and he knows all the results and everything.
Yeah. Obviously you were into, you love the karting, but where does the competitive instinct come from? If is that something that you kind of developed as you started karting, you started winning and you then had it, or as soon as you started, you wanted to win, despite the fact your father got depressed with you coming last?
I really hate losing at the moment. Like, I hate losing now these days. So I'm very competitive about anything that I do. And I think it comes from my old man. But equally, I think when you're young and you're a young kid, go-karting, I think it's the same in any sport, go-karting, soccer, the whole thing, it's so much fun as a kid. And you're just about having a heap of fun, and you don't realize that it's actually, so you get so much enjoyment from being that competitive as well. Does that make sense? And then it only comes later when you're a bit older, getting into your teens, that you realize that it's also great to be competitive, especially go-karting, because as a young kid, an 8-year-old, it's awesome to drive a go-kart, if that makes sense. I think it does develop that competitive nature as well.
Yeah. I think I saw in another interview that you said that what you love about motor racing is that there's always work to do. There's no, you never drive a perfect lap. The car's never perfect. And that side of it, you still love even today.
Yeah, I think as a driver, the day that you stop learning is the day probably you should stop, to be honest. And, whether it's, you're a multiple champion or, someone that's just starting, you're always learning as you go every single time. So that's what I do love about it, is that motorsport's also very good at keeping you fresh and reminding you that you're only as good as your last race. And that saying for me goes into something that it's also, you never stop learning. So you can be at the front and you can think, I know everything, I'm the best. And then shortly after, you get beaten by someone or something goes wrong, the whole thing, and you never stop learning. And that's why also the skill and knowledge is also so important, especially doing like a big race like Le Mans. The knowledge and experience counts for a lot.
Yeah. Now, motorsport's obviously littered with big names from New Zealand. There's been some absolutely amazing drivers throughout the history of the sport. But did your kind of motorsport aspirations seem quite kind of out of reach coming from New Zealand and doing all your karting there? Or, what's the motorsport sort of career ladder like?
Actually, when I did it, we were very, very lucky. At the time, we had A1GP going, so there was a route and a way that young drivers could move forward up through the ranks and, gain a proper path. We had Scott Dixon just before me. And Kiwis are really good at banding together and, making something of it for young guys. And to be honest, I feel at the moment we've sort of lost that pathway slightly, to be honest. And it's also why recently I've started together with, Porsche New Zealand, we've started a scholarship up, getting young drivers into Carrera Cup in Australia, providing them a platform with funding and stuff like that to sort of try guide them on that career path and have an opportunity in a place and a space to go where also it's partly funded too, because that's a big problem, is always funding these days. So I get actually real enjoyment out of being able to provide that pathway, because it's something I was very lucky to benefit from. So I hope that the others can benefit from something like that.
Yeah. It's odd that you're sort of, you're only 31, but you're almost sort of considered an elderly statesman in terms of, you're now mentoring younger drivers. Where do you, with this scholarship, where are you looking for drivers? Is it in karting? Is it as early as that? Or are you looking a bit later in their careers?
We're looking mainly go-karting. We're also looking in, early GT racing in New Zealand. So like Toyota 86s, Toyota Racing Series. So, our main driver this year, Matthew Payne, won the Toyota Racing Series Championship. He just won his first Carrera Cup race in Australia. So it was our first, race win for us over there, which was huge. It was really, really cool. And, he's got a big career in front of himself as a guy that's just come out of out of go-karts and essentially just into GT cars and now already winning.
Yeah. And this might seem sort of quite ignorant, but when you're looking for young drivers, you're not just looking for raw speed, are you? You've got to have
quite a few attributes to actually make it in motorsport. Just tell us a little bit about what you're, when you're looking at younger drivers, what are you looking at?
These days you've got to look for a whole package. And to be honest, you see a lot of very talented drivers out there. And I've seen when I did racing, there was a lot of talented guys, and some guys, more talented than myself, a raw talent. But you need to also look for work ethic. You need to look for, the drive and the will. In many ways, it's a beautiful sport that we all love, and at the same time, it's a brutal sport where you got to sleep on people's couches. You got to make a lot of sacrifices and fly all around the world, chasing this dream. So, if you're going to do it, you really have to love it, and you have to see that in drivers as well, that they really, really want to do it.
Yeah. And after karting, you went into Formula Ford. How was that step up? Because a lot of people kind of take to it straight away and say it was just like a big go-kart, and others kind of take a bit of time to adapt. But what was that first time like in a single-seater?
Actually, my first ever time in a car was in an RX-7. I can tell you that. So I went to Andy Neal in New Zealand, which he coached most of the young drivers, coming from go-karts. And my first ever race car I ever drove was a RX-7. And then I did a day in that, and then I moved into the Formula Ford. And I remember the Formula Ford well. It was a 1989 Van Diemen, so it was older than me, that racing car. And it was awesome. I mean, just the thrill of single-seater driving, also the challenge of it. I think Formula Ford racing is some of the best racecraft that a young driver can get to learn close quarter racing as well, because it's something that we sort of miss now these days when they go straight to single seaters, qualify on pole, drive away. It's probably a skill that they lack in when they get to GT stuff, because obviously what we do over here, we're passing cars all the time in the 70 car field. So that was a real good breeding ground. Obviously had great racing with, Shane Van Gisbergen and stuff like that. And you need that first year to also learn the ropes. Like first time you put it in third gear instead of first, how do you do the start sequence, all that sort of stuff. And it's again back to like what we do with the race team. And a lot of fathers ask me, can you teach my son everything that he needs to know? And I say, well, I can certainly tell him all the things that I've done wrong, but until they do that and learn that lesson themselves, can they only truly learn it? I think it's a little bit the scenario like where you tell the kid the pot's hot, don't touch it. And sure enough, you still touch it just to see how hot it is. I think it's exactly the same thing. Yeah, exactly. It's exactly like wet paint. And it's exactly the same as don't pass under the yellow flag. Well, how far can I go before it's classified that I did? Or, how far forward can I creep to start? All that sort of stuff. And then they get a penalty and then they learn it. So I think it is part of that learning process, and it was a great place to learn.
Yeah. You obviously did a lot of racing in the Asia series, that's Toyota racing, which you mentioned just there, Formula BMW, GP2. Are they harder to get sort of picked up in than the sort of the main, well, I say the main series, but the sister series over West? Well, to be honest, it was sort of close to home. And I was very lucky that I got sort of good drives that were basically free back then. And that was sort of the pathway that we had to go. And it's also hard to make that step into Europe because, New Zealand, Aussie, people that can sort of find you ways to get in. But going to Europe, it's very difficult to find your way and to know who could fund you, what teams could have funding, all that sort of stuff. And managed to come over and do like a Formula Masters race once or twice and actually won first time. And then doing the A1 GP was a huge eye-opener as well, to be honest. That was, a big learning curve. But the most difficult thing for us when we get over here is we don't know the tracks. So, like if you imagine most of the guys, they're always here, they go down to Hockenheim, or we're at Spa. I was just looking back the other day because I'm, coaching a couple of guys this weekend with, in our own team. And I've been coming here since 2014, 7 years now, 8 years, driving supercar, GT, stuff like that. And it's hard to gain that experience and knowledge when you come here the first time. It's not necessarily that we're good or bad. It's just that, we've driven here. It's our playground here. We know it. It's like going to play cricket in India. The Indians really know their pitches and, all that stuff. Well, it's the same jumping over here. Yeah. You're moved into sports because you mentioned that you obviously drove the RX-7.
probably only for a few laps with the fuel consumption I think that car has. But the GT3 Challenge, Cup Challenge in New Zealand, was that your first taste of kind of sports cars after that RX-7?
I'd driven a Trans Am before. I'd driven a V8 supercar, so I'd driven a little bit of stuff like that. And then I drove the first ever time in 2010. I got a chance to drive one, and it was in free practice. At the end of free practice, and then straight into qualifying, I qualified third. And for some reason, I just really clicked with it. I had a good feeling with the Porsche and stuff like that. And then obviously in 2013, same thing with the 997, getting in it straight away and managing to be competitive. And for me, that was a really important year because, I was getting older and I had to get the scholarship that year. That was sort of my chance to go through, was to get the scholarship. And then obviously then the championship wasn't the focus. The focus was the scholarship. So once we got the scholarship, then the championship came along with that. And then ironically, at the end of 2014, when we won the Super Cup Championship, some of the guys in the LMP1 program heard that I'd done high-level single-seater racing before, A1GP, GP2, stuff like that. And that was also where some of that opportunity came from. I think if I hadn't had that single-seater background in the past, would I've actually got the chance and opportunity to even test the car.
Yeah, because from what I can tell, single-seater racing, obviously in sports car racing, especially with GTs, it's very different how you actually drive the car. And Darren Turner always, I remember him saying that he loves GTs because you can kind of really wrestle them around the circuit. Whereas single-seaters were always a little bit more refined. Do you have a preference for one or the other? Because you obviously, as you said, you stepped into a sports car and instantly kind of found it reasonably easy. Do you miss the single-seater type of? I know we'll talk about the hybrid here and the 919, but when you're racing GT.
To be honest, I don't think you do. For me, what's most important is to challenge yourself against some of the best drivers in the world and in the best environment where you've got development and competition. So, whether that be, 919 LMP1, GTLM, those sorts of things, it's all a great challenge at the highest possible level. And if you ever look at it, that sort of racing is manufacturers, they can choose anyone they want to drive in the world. They can develop their cars how they want, and you go fight other teams with the same philosophy, and it's fantastic. And that's what, for me, sport and competition, it should be about, and that's what I like about it, rather than the pure car.
Yeah. We'll come on to the 919, as I said, but when you were doing all the karts, the single seaters, all the way up to sort of GP2 Asia Series, was your goal Formula One, or was it just a career in motorsport?
No, I mean, always it's the goal of Formula One. When you start as a kid like that, you always want to sort of achieve that and try to go up to that level for sure. Obviously, didn't ever get the chance. Like a lot of people, again, never got the chance or opportunity. But at the end of the day, for me, where I am now with what I've done, very, very happy where I've ended up in the sport as well. So, would have loved to have driven one once. But yeah, equally, I don't sort of have any regrets about anything either.
Yeah. Do you think too many young drivers are set on the Formula One route? And, there's only 22 seats in Formula One. And actually, if you take away all the elder drivers, the multiple world champions who aren't necessarily going to move on anytime soon, you're really competing for 3 seats or maybe 2 seats a year. Do you think younger drivers should be focusing more on actually, GT sports cars, especially nowadays, is just a good career? And are they wasting time trying to get to Formula One, or is it not that case?
I see more young drivers focusing on it, yes. So when I came through, it was all Formula One. But now sports car racing is so big, and I think we're about to see a massive golden era with LMDH coming and the convergence of, LMDH and LMH as well. I think we'll see sports car racing at a level that we've never seen before. So yeah. I think then also people will look up to that and say, you know what, that is the best racing on earth. That's what I want to do. Because I think we could easily see 30, cars competing for the win overall at Le Mans come in 2023, 2024. And, that spectacle is something that we haven't seen for years.
Yeah. Forgive me if you can or can't say, but are you signed up to drive Porsche's new sports car, the Penske Porsche, or do you not know yet?
Nobody knows at the moment. So obviously, first they're trying to secure the team, and then secondly they're trying to later secure the drivers. I think we're not racing until 2023, so nobody actually knows yet.
Yeah, but I take it you're jumping around with your hand in the air for it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, obviously it's the place that you want to go, and you want to go back and win Le Mans overall. So I'm definitely sitting there with my hand up, please, I'm here. So for sure.
Yeah, because the Roger Penske came over to the Festival of Speeds this year for the first time, and I got an opportunity to sort of chat to him. But it's astonishing what he's and Team Penske has managed over the last several decades. It must be quite exciting for Porsche as well to be teamed up with Penske again after, because the last time I think obviously LMP2, the RS Spider that they did that was so successful. Is there an element of excitement sort of within the team and what might happen with Penske?
I think there's an element of excitement at Porsche at the moment. At the idea of going back to top flight sports car racing. How the whole Penske thing rolls out and everything like that. I think everyone's still yet to work that out. Obviously, it's good to have such a team as Penske, and I think it's good just for the sport as well to have Penske in sports car racing at the highest level with such an iconic brand as Porsche. Obviously, with their past, with such success with the RS Spider as well. So I think it's exciting for everyone.
The sports car, the 919, or you call it the 919. Is it the 919, or am I getting it wrong with the 919, or is it just free for all?
I think it's a free for all.
Okay, great.
I mean,
right. Well, the 919 then.
Yeah.
Just talk me through your first experience of it, because I know you've driven quick single seaters, you've driven quick race cars, but it must have been an amazing experience to drive that for the first time. Whereabouts were you, and what was it like?
So my first ever time was in Abu Dhabi. It was in there, and we got 10 laps each as a shootout, and it was absolutely incredible. First, I mean, the hybrid system is something that's unreal. Everyone talks about hybrid power and no performance, but I mean, there you learned about hybrid systems and the amount of power and performance that they've got, which is absolutely phenomenal. And yeah, that was something out of this world. And you ask about the Formula One question. If you drive a car like that, you also don't need to drive Formula One, because the power and performance of it is just unreal and phenomenal. And then obviously the other cool thing that we can do is we can drive it flat out for 24 hours. And everyone thinks that we're sort of cruising around, biding our time. No, we are flat out. We are 10 tenths the entire way. 10 tenths, and hopefully we don't hit something the whole way.
And just talk me through what you're doing on a lap in that car, because I mean, how much management do you need to do of the hybrid systems?
To be honest, we're not doing that much on a lap by lap basis. In all honesty, we are just, trying to drive the best we can. Certainly when conditions change, we have to change a lot with the sailing and the strategy and stuff like that. But on a lap by lap basis, we were just driving it like a regular car. It took a lot to get used to it, because it's all about efficiency the whole way. That's the biggest word, is efficiency. So certainly you had to learn a lot as a driver in that first tests, and going to Le Mans, it was just a massive learning curve the entire way, let alone about the things that you can change in the car when you come from, Carrera Cup or nearly your entire single-seater racing career. You're just changing a bit of roll bar or something like that. Where now you're fully open to be able to develop nearly whatever you want. So that whole concept was also a massive learning curve for me.
Yeah. And you said it was a shootout in Abu Dhabi. Was this to get a seat in the car for the following year?
Yeah, exactly. So, when they were choosing the drivers for the third car in 2015, there was a shootout between some of the drivers, with various drivers from Porsche. So, there was high pressure stakes, but I enjoyed it. It was good.
Yeah. And your first experience of Le Mans, obviously as you came up the sort of the sports car ladder, Le Mans is one of the goals. Just talk me through the first lap and the first time you left the pits there.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing, that place. And, it's the prestige comes as well because you can't drive there ever. That's also something incredible is, normally you can test at a track, you can experience it. But Le Mans is Le Mans. You have the one test day and then you've got the race. And then if you mess it up, you've got to wait 365 days again and try again. And the whole team is building around that and sacrificing the car build of the whole World Endurance Championship to try to do that one race and win it. So, just the hype, the crowd, the entire thing is incredible. And yeah, when you go out into Mulsanne the first time, it's something really, really special.
Yeah. I mean, you've driven, all the kind of the big circuits, as we call them, in terms of Le Mans, Nurburgring, Spa. Tell me about Bathurst, because I, for my sins, have never been, but it's one of the circuits, isn't it?
Yeah, it is one of those circuits. For me, I've got on my wall at home, I've got three or four tracks. I've got Bathurst, Le Mans, Macau, and yeah, where is it? Bathurst, Le Mans, Macau, Nurburgring. Actually, no, I don't have Nurburgring on the wall. But for me, those are the four. Those are the four tracks that are still for drivers, if that makes sense. It's one of those special places where it sort of gets your attention when you drive the first lap. And Bathurst is one of those. When you go across the top, there's absolutely no margin. When you do the Bathurst 1000, I mean, just take the Wednesday track walk. You can't walk the track. You walk it, and there's so many people on the track, you can't see the track. It's more to have a chit chat with the fans. Hey, you do the track walk than to actually see something because there's so many people there. And, it's that sort of stuff that makes it special as well. And it's, again, another one of those places where you can't go do a test day. You have to wait till the race till you can do a test or drive.
And tell me a bit about Macau, because I'm pretty sure that's where you sealed the Carrera Cup Asia title, beating Loeb, wasn't it, at Macau? So you've got happy memories.
That was an invitational race, actually. But that was crazy racing against Loeb, because obviously he's a big name, and, to race against him and then on the streets. And we had him in the dry. We had him sorted. That was okay. And then it poured down with rain, like proper rain. And I was like, oh God, like Sebastian Loeb in a street track in the rain. This is like perfect for him. This is his thing. And we had an awesome race. He hounded me down at the beginning on the first couple laps, because that's his forte, has been so adaptable and getting on it so quickly. That's what he's done with his rally career. So that was really, really difficult. But then fond memories. After that, not so fond, trying to still win the World GT Cup. Maybe we get to go again this year, but it's one of those tracks where you always want to go to. You always want to challenge yourself to go there.
Yeah. You're well known for, driving lots of different cars across the season. Have you looked, we'll talk about NASCAR in a bit, but I know you've tried that. What, rallying, would you be interested in that?
I would have a go, but I wouldn't do a competition. I just, I'd like to do it calmly, if that makes sense. Rally cross would be cool. Yeah. Or to be honest, one thing on my bucket list is Baja 1000. I would do the Baja 1000, but more as a casual entrant, if that makes sense.
Is that phrase possible being a racing driver? I'm pretty sure that as soon as you put
Probably
that
not. Probably not.
Yeah.
But I think the first time you do it, you've got to do it just to experience it, if that makes sense. Like, just to say that you've done it and done the 1,000-mile journey, if you get what I mean. I think if you went in competition, you'd probably last about 100 miles and you'd be stuck somewhere. So I think the first time is to go relaxed and get some experience. I did go there last year, actually, to Baja, and drove some off-road trucks on the roads, and it was phenomenal. The level of concentration required, even just for like at a slower level, is phenomenal.
Yeah. We're talking of concentration. Am I right in thinking that when you go and do a 30-hour test, you try and stay awake for it in training for the 24-hour races?
Yeah, no, for sure. Obviously, in a 24-hour race, you always think, okay, I'll get my beard, I'll go to sleep, and the whole thing. And it never works. You're always awake. You're always like, intense in the race, the whole thing. And it is difficult to get a good night's sleep. So, I always a bit of a believer that you prepare that sort of stuff. It's better to learn to drive the car excruciatingly tired and then work yourself back from there.
Yeah. And obviously you do that to prepare, but do you find there's a drop off in lap times where the more tired you get?
I think you're more prone to mistakes for sure. But obviously you're putting yourself in a place that you're never used to, right? So if your body's more used to it and it's been through it before, it's much more unlikely that you'll make a mistake. Rather, if it's the first time you've ever been that tired, it's excruciating.
Yeah. But there are drivers that sleep during Le Mans, aren't there? Or
you definitely can. No, you definitely sleep. But if you imagine it, you do your stint and you say, okay, I do a double stint, I do 2 hours. Then you get out of the car, you might take an hour to cool down. By the time you get out, go see the guys, eat some food, cool yourself down, take a shower. Then you've sort of got at the maximum 2 hours, an hour and a half, because you remember you've got to be on standby and get ready again before the previous pit stop, before you get in. So that means you've got to be ready in the garage an hour and a half before. So that only leaves you an hour and a half window, roughly an hour and a half to sleep every rotation. If that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not ideal.
No, it's not huge amounts of time. You might get 2 hours sleep and then you got to calm yourself down, sleep and the whole thing. So it's not that you're getting a full 8-9 hours. Now, recently it's Nurburgring and stuff like that. We've been having amazing sleeps all night long because of the rain. But, this is, I don't think we'll get that much this week.
Yeah. I have to say, I have done one 24-hour race in my life. And that was with Citroen 2CVs at Snetterton. So very similar to your standard, obviously. And I was supposed to be sleeping in a tent in the paddock, and I didn't sleep at all.
See?
It was miserable.
Exactly.
No, yeah. So I see your pain. I see your pain.
And then you're watching your car, and then you're wondering how are we going? Are we going to be good? Are we going to be bad? And then you're awake, and then you're driving again.
Yeah.
And then it's 5 a.m.
It's actually probably worse as you will be, fighting for the lead, because every minute is important. Whereas if you're sort of, if your race has been slightly ruined by repair or puncture or something like that, it's probably slightly less stressful.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's also a very odd feeling. Like you go to sleep, and I've had times where you go to sleep in 4th place and you come up leading. Or I've also, gone to sleep and been leading and yet woken up expecting a stint and you're out of the race.
Yeah.
So you never know.
We're just going to take a step back from the podcast to thank our partner. Princess Yachts has been a long-time supporter of motorsport, both in the magazine and now with this podcast series. They're massive fans of motorsport and follow it very closely. But do please have a look at their website, princessyachts.com. It is truly extraordinary what this company does on a daily basis. Much like motorsport, they're proudly British, and the standard of work is amazing. Go and have a look at their website. Yeah, you mentioned the Nurburgring there. I've driven around it kind of once, or I've been driven around it once and driven around it once. How as a racing driver how do you learn the Nurburgring? Did you go off and do sort of several laps in a road car, or can you pick that circuit up in say 10 laps?
No, I did probably thousands of laps on Gran Turismo back in the day. Way too many. So I knew it like the back of my hand. You need to know what way you're going and what's coming next. And then it takes you a while to get the last idiosyncrasies, but if you've done the game, then you know what's coming next, left or right, left or right. If you try go there and you don't know what's coming next, you're in big trouble.
Yeah. I think that's what's called a PlayStation professional, what they call them out there. Yeah. And there's actually, for anyone listening or watching, there is a very good video on YouTube. I think it's a father and son who leave the kind of holding area for just the open days, and I think crash at the first corner. It was almost immediate. And all you hear on the onboard video is, oh, it's flat there on the PlayStation. You probably don't have those same problems as a proper racing driver, but it must be, of all the circuits, a roller coaster to race there, because especially the 24-hour race, there are cars everywhere, and the track, it can rain one end, be dry the other.
The issue is the first time you ever do a lap every morning, it's the thing to do, the first lap. And how much do you push? Is there oil? Is it full of water? Is there dirt? And it's so fast and you're so committed that you come around and there's some issue and you're done. So that first lap is always hair raising. Like at a normal track, like Spa will go out. We know it's dry. We know that there's not much there you can push. But there, that again, it's one of those places that commands respect. You don't know what's coming. You don't know if, the Fuchs are full of water. I mean, we've seen snow when it's 30 degrees and sunshine in the pits. You just don't know what you're going to come up against.
Do you have spotters out on the track?
No, we don't.
Would that not be something that helped, or is it easier just to drive it like a bit like a rally in terms of just drive the road in front of you?
We were in contact with all the other Porsches, so they tell us, give us updates. But we've also had many times where spotters have said, yeah, it's all dry, and you go there and it's full of water. So now they've sort of said, well, the drivers could be responsible for that part.
Yeah, they probably delved into the campsites of the Nurburgring 24 hours or something like that, which are bottomless pits of joy.
Exactly.
You mentioned NASCAR. How did you find the sort of step into NASCAR? Because you have driven a lot of cars throughout your career, but I think NASCARs are particularly different.
The hardest thing I've ever driven, by far.
Really? So why was that?
Well, first of all, the most difficult thing is that there's no testing allowed last year. So the first time I ever drove the car was in the race. So the first time I'd ever shifted gears or anything was in the race. And then there's a thing called wheel hop. And I'm sure we've all heard it on the TV when they describe wheel hop. And they describe it like rear brake locking. And you've driven cars. It's not rear wheel locking. It is wheel hop as they describe it in every essence. The wheels are hopping and you are heading straight to the fence. And no matter what you can do, you can't stop it. And, I had this great battle for the first stage of containing this wheel hop. And eventually I did. And then there was a late stage caution and we got fifth. We ended up lighting up fifth for the start of the second stage, or even third. We finished fifth and then third. And I remember then off the start, just braking and then for horseshoe and getting wheel hop and hitting the 18 straight out of the race. And I was just like, I couldn't do anything. I wasn't even trying to pass him. I was just like, oh God, I'm sorry. And nailed him, turned him around. And obviously in NASCAR, there's no penalties. And then I ended up lining up off the front row this time. And I said to the guys on the radio, I said, I'm not sure I should even be on the front row right now because I've still got absolutely no idea really what I'm doing in this thing. I've driven a whole handful of 15 laps in my life in a NASCAR, and now I'm on the front row of the Xfinity grid. I really don't know what the hell I'm doing. And then the heat was enormous, and I burnt my foot apart and the whole thing. And then eventually I went wide at the bus stop. But I definitely want to do it again, but it's one of the hardest things I've ever driven in my life.
It's so weird that, isn't it? Because NASCARs are notoriously sort of agricultural, simple cars, but I guess in order to be quick in them, there's a really specific way you need to drive, I guess.
Look, they are agricultural in some ways, but the engineering behind them is very, very clever and smart. And you drive it and it's not as bad as what you think it is.
if that makes sense. Like they are a lot better than what they were. There's a lot of engineering going on to. It's the same like a V8 supercar. You know, everyone said, "Oh, V8 supercar, big taxi." V8 supercar, amazing racing car. And if you ever look at the regulations it needs to adhere to, the size of the wheel and no aerodynamics, it nearly does the same lap time as a GT3 car at Bathurst. So there's some serious engineering involved inside of those racing cars to make them go that fast, even though they are very, very basic. And they're actually, you know, an NASCAR in a V8 supercar are actually more of a racing car than the GT3 car because they are pure race car chassis platforms built from the ground up, rather the GT3 is actually sort of road car chassis. So it is very interesting, the comments and perceptions of people as well.
Yeah, but it's interesting. You do see a lot of very, very good racing drivers go into NASCAR and hate it and just really struggle. You know, multiple championship winners and.
It is hard. It is really hard. But I like that it was that hard, and that's why I want to do it again, because I'm not satisfied that I wasn't good at it, if that makes sense, or was it as good as I want to be at it. But it is just excruciating. The thermal dig of the tire is just enormous, and you know the whole thing. So, you know, I think it's easier in the Cup car because it's got a much higher downforce package as well. So adding downforce just makes it easier. But for sure, the Xfinity, not easy.
Yeah. And how did you find it kind of running so close with all the other cars? I know in sports car racing, you've got loads of cars, different speeds and things.
Really easy.
Really?
It's really easy because the spotters up top are amazing, and you don't even need to look in the mirror. I mean, it is incredible what they tell you, the detail and everything. And if you've got a good spotter, they tell you where they are.
Right. So, okay, so you don't even use the mirrors. No wonder there are so many crashes.
No, then it's the spotter's fault.
Yeah, yeah. Look, I've got a question here from Steve. He was just wondering which drivers you looked up to when you were coming up through the ranks.
That's a good question. You know, definitely when you're a kid, you're looking at Schumacher of that area. And then they had the Alonso Schumacher fight as well. You know, also for me, Greg Murphy was a big influence as well. Obviously, you know, when he was dominating supercars, like with the gods that he did at, you know, Bathurst and all that sort of stuff. So probably those guys. Yeah.
Now, this podcast is obviously part of the Porsche's Winning Formula Series. You've driven all types of Porsches. You're a Porsche Works driver. What is the secret to Porsche's kind of enduring success? Because whatever they do in motorsport, they always seem to be at the front or on their way to the front. Is that a mentality thing that is kind of born out of Germany and the factory there, or is it, what is it?
Well, I think it's all down to the roots of the company, because they built cars to go racing in the beginning. And, you know, motorsport is such a huge part of their brand, and they will always do racing. You know, motor racing is in their DNA. And, you know, a lot of other brands come and go from motorsport and not that affiliated to it. But, you know, Porsche is, in many ways, that is them as they are racing.
We talked about it very briefly earlier, and we are sort of running out of time, but I just wanted to get your thoughts on this new era of Le Mans. You know, we've got the two different categories. I know it's all about balance of performance now, but how is it going to be possible to match these sort of two top categories and everyone to be happy and to go racing? Is that going to happen?
I mean, no one's ever happy, right? Because, you know, there's only ever one person that's happy, and that's the guy that wins, and the rest are all, you know, there's always a reason why they couldn't, or they should have won, or, you know, it was unfair and stuff like that. So ultimately, there's only ever going to be one person happy every time they go to Le Mans, and that's the winning car, whether it's the sister car as well. But yes, I think they can do it. The technology is there. We've had many, many years now of BOP. If you look at SRO, if you look at IMSA, they do a fantastic job of BOP. You know, I think the amount of energy and effort that people go into in the background to work and to calculate the BOPs is maybe not appreciated by the outside people. You know, it's not just random numbers plucked out of a hat.
if that makes sense. There is actual proper scientific data behind the entire thing. And it rewards teams that do the best job consistently. So, you know, it's not just on a single car, it's off a lot of cars. And, you know, now also with the torque measurement sensors that are going to get into the drive shafts, you know, there's no hiding of power. There's no hiding of aero because they all go in the wind tunnel. So slowly this whole thing on a scientific basis becomes great. And then it comes down to drivers and teams.
Yeah. And has there been sandbagging in recent years? Because I've heard things about actually, well, you don't want to go too well here because then you'll get penalised for Le Mans, which is the most important race. And I guess if that has been happening, it's not going to happen once they get these torque sensors on the drive shafts.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think it happened in the, 2010 era more and more and more. But like I said, also, if you look at GT3, there's only standard engine maps. There's no more engine mapping. So you can't change anything. There's, torque measurement sensors, there's ride height checks, there's weight checks, there's, so the longer this stuff stays around, the better everyone understands it. So then there is really no more loopholes, if that makes sense. These loopholes get diminished, and then, the racing is purely better. And I think also all manufacturers have been encouraged for the better of the sport to just drive what they've got, because at the end of the day, everyone wants an equal playing field. You don't want to go to Le Mans or any race and just win by a minute. That's not, you also don't get the same satisfaction. You want to have a clean, hard fight with all your competitors.
Yeah. Speaking as a fan, I think everyone is hugely excited about the new Le Mans regulations and what they might do for sports car racing. I guess that's a sentiment that's shared amongst all you drivers as well, because, you want, sports car racing to grow and grow, but especially the top flight of it.
Yeah, I think everyone's enormously excited about it. And I think also everyone's excited about the prospect of privateers being able to fight for Le Mans, because all these cars are available to be bought by privateers, and you can go get your drivers and you can field an entry and go try win Le Mans or the World Endurance Championship or the IMSA Championship, Daytona 24, all that stuff. And I think that also opens a whole dimension in this whole thing as well, which no one's really thought about yet as well, because, in the past it might have cost 100 million to go try do it. Now it's achievable by many to be able to do that.
Yeah. Well, that was one of the wonderful things about Group C era. Porsche, if Porsche's factory teams faltered, they had about 10 privateers there, all running 956s or 962s. And
exactly.
Yeah. I can't wait. Well, look, Earl, it's been absolutely brilliant and an amazing insight into sort of the current state of sports car racing and what we got to look forward to. Just before we go, I must thank Alan Hyde, who's someone none of you will ever see on these podcasts, but he is very much behind the scenes, doing all the video and audio, which this year has been more difficult than ever, thanks to the wonderful Zoom. But Earl, thank you so much. It's been absolutely fantastic to hear all your stories. And thank you all to all of you for listening, for watching. And we'll see you all next time on another Motorsport Magazine podcast. Thank you and bye-bye.